Typically, you go to a team that's rebuilding, not New York City and not the Broadway Blue Shirts. How about the pressure that he's dealt with, and so has Kakko? Rupper, could this be a breakout season for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to get the opportunities. They have been given some opportunities, but I think it has to eventually get to the point where you're like, all right, these guys are going to run 30 games here in this role. Like, you got to let these guys really adjust on the day-to-day basis. And I think they've shown enough up to this point to get that opportunity. I think that's how Peter Laviolette's going to use them. So we'll see how it works out. I think Kakko has a little bit of a better situation in the regards where he's playing the right side where it's not as deep. I mean, Lafreniere has in front of him Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin. So it might look a little bit different as far as maybe right off the hop where each player is starting in this lineup, but they're going to get an opportunity. I expect some big things, especially out of Kakko. But I expect big things out of Lafreniere too. It's just what does that look like? Who's he with? What line is it on? Those things are to be determined still.
Yeah, and there's been modest growth throughout, right? We've seen these guys. We're all so hard on them and want so much. You look at their stats, they reached around 40 points last season, half a point per game. That's pretty good, but everyone's waiting for them to pop. And I do agree that Kakko's got a clearer road to it, just with less depth up front on that right side. As you mentioned, Rupper, it's really tough unless Kreider or Panarin gets hurt. You're not going to have those minutes, but I also look to Hedl in the middle of the ice. Like, could these three guys all break out at the same time? Perhaps it's changing of the guard for the New York Rangers. I don't know. Maybe that's out there, but there's an opportunity for that. Those guys have shown flashes, but it all comes down to PP1 in New York.
Yes.
That's a great power play, and if you're not on it, you're
not going to get the points.
You're not getting those points, plain and simple.
Yeah, when you look at though, think about it from the standpoint, just what you said there, Hicks. Like, there's no PP1 for either of these guys. Have they been on power play one for a game? You know, a little yes, at times. They are not on power play one or have not been up to this point. No PP1 and fourth line, 40 points. That's pretty good for a young player. And the other part about it, too, is these guys are just learning how to play away from the puck. And I think so many times when you're a young player, top 2 overall pick, and you go to a not-so-good team, you're just thrown out there no matter what, and you create some bad habits. I don't think these guys have gotten those bad habits because they've been on a contending team and they've been demanded, if you're going to play in this lineup at all, you've got to manage the puck. You got to hold on to pucks. You got to learn how to protect pucks and battle at a certain level. I think they've learned some things ahead of some other players that have gone 1 and 2 overall because they've had to wait a little bit longer in this process.
The Rangers will be starting this season with a third different bench boss in the last 3 seasons. You often hear about the importance of continuity. Continuity is the story in Raleigh. Rod Brindamore is the coach. He will be the coach, and that's a good thing. He knows what he has in Seth Jarvis. Rupper, this interested me because the other day we were talking about the Canes, and one of the first names you said was Seth Jarvis. Why?
Well, this has been a team that's been knocking on the door to win a Stanley Cup for the last number of years. Management has gone out and they've made moves, gutsy moves, big moves to try to get this team over the hump. And this is a team that's going to be capped out, and they're built phenomenally, and they've got a coach that makes their team play with some real identity. So the only thing that's going to push them over the top, in my opinion, is the young guys taking the next step. Seth Jarvis is one of the main ones I'm looking at. Having Svechnikov back to the lineup and having him take that next step. And we were talking to Shane Willis the other day, said he thinks that this guy could score 40 goals. I agree with that. I think he can as well. And then Kotkaniemi as well. I mean, these are where it's at for this team. And Seth Jarvis, if he can up the ante and be a regular top 6 guy, that could be a big difference for this hockey club because they're right there.
How about what you see from him?
He has that ability. You look up and down this lineup, I think coming into the season, probably the best D-corps in the National Hockey League. They're going to be playing offense a lot, and they always do. They're a shot-first team. They put a lot of pucks on net, but he's sort of got that game-breaking ability. I mean, he's scratching the surface. He's not there yet, but you get Svechnikov back, you round out that top 6 a little bit better, there's going to be opportunities, and he's a guy that's capable. You see his last 2 seasons statistics pretty similar. This could be the year that he pops, and I think, like we said, if Carolina is going to make that step, I'm always a big fan of Carolina. It seems like every year is their year. If it's going to be their year, they need someone to step up. That's the obvious choice.
Could it be a breakout campaign for Kent Johnson? Right here on NHL Network, we saw him dazzle with Canada in the World Juniors. Those his numbers from last season. In 79 games, 40 points on a Columbus team that missed the playoffs and struggled with injury. Hicks, what do you think about Kent Johnson as a potential breakout star?
I think there's a chance at it because I saw him play a bunch last year. I saw him early in the year. I had to circle his name and look for him because I knew he was a high draft pick. I didn't know what I was going to see. At the end of the season, this kid was full of confidence, and he was doing special things. He scored some amazing goals last season, and someone with a really high potential. He's played a lot of center. He's played wing. Now with Adam Fantilli, how good is Fantilli going to be? Are these guys going to play together? What's Mike Babcock's use going to be for these young guys, and how's he going to deploy them? You look at his numbers, really good, around 40 points last season. First full kick of the can as an NHLer. This guy's got potential.
If you just look at the Columbus Blue Jackets over the last number of years, as far as what they've added up front, and we know in 2019, after that run, they lost a lot of talent, right? But since then, it's been building up that talent pool, and Kent Johnson's a huge reason why I'm so excited about this group. And they've got a lot of talent. Now, how does all that fit together? Who plays with who? How does it work? That's to be determined, and that's what training camp's going to figure out. But I expect a big year out of him because he's got that year under his belt. Plus, he's surrounded by elite talent. I mean, when you're talking about talent on a power play, I don't know how good their power play is going to be league-wide as far as ranking, but talent on the ice, they're just as good as a lot of teams, high-end teams. So, Kent Johnson's going to get opportunities to see if he could deliver.